श्री राधे। जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा। जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद्भाय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद्भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय नित्य लीला प्रविष्ट विष्णुपाद श्रील किशोर दास बाबू जी महाराज की जय। श्री गौरी वैष्णव गुरुवर्ग की जय। गंगमय की जय। जमुनमय की जय। भक्ति देवी की जय। तुलसी देवी की जय। मंत्रकोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्री नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। नित्य गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओ गौरी समुद्र वेरीज हरे कृष्णा। ओ गौरी समुद्र वेरीज हरे कृष्णा। ओ गौरी समुद्र वेरीज हरे कृष्णा। ओ गौरी श्री गुरु श्री गौरंग। ओ गौरी श्री प्रभुपाद। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, Text 3. Sarvam hyetad bhavan veda bhuta bhavya bhavat prabhu karamalakavad vishvam विज्ञानवासितं तव सर्वं ह्येतद् भवान् वेद भूतभव्य भवत्प्रभुः करामलकवद्विश्वम् विज्ञानावसितं तव सर्वं ह्येतद्भवान् वेद भूतभव्य भवत्प्रभुः कारमालक्तवद्विश्वम् विज्ञानवासितं तव सर्वं ह्येतद्भवान् वेद भूतभव्य भवत्प्रभुः करामलक्तवद्विश्वम् विज्ञानवासितं तव सर्वं ह्येतद्भवान् वेद भूतभव्य भवत्प्रभुः करामलक्तवद्विश्वम् विज्ञानावसितं तव सर्वं ह्येतद्भवान् Vijnanavasitam Tava Sarvam, all and everything. He, certainly. Etat, this. Bhavan, your good self. Veda, no. Bhuta, all that is created or born. Bhavya, all that will be created or born. Bhavat, all that is being created. Prabhu, you, the master of everything. Kara amalakavat, just like a walnut within your grip. Vishvam, the universe. Vijnana avasitam, within your knowledge scientifically. Tava, your. Translation. My dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, or whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. Purport. Brahma is the direct creator of the manifested universe and everything within the universe. He therefore knows what happened in the past, what will happen in the future, and what is happening at present. Three principal items, namely the living being, the phenomenal world, and the controller, are all in continuous action, past, present, and future. And the direct manager is supposed to know everything of such actions and reactions, as one knows about a walnut within the grip of one's palm. The direct manufacturer of a particular thing is supposed to know how he learned the art of manufacturing, where he got the ingredients, how he set it up, and how the products in the manufacturing process are being turned out. Because Brahma is the firstborn living being, naturally he is supposed to know everything about creative functions. And again the translation, my dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratrashe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we're hearing the continuation of Narad's prayers. He's hoping to get some knowledge from Brahma, and he's approaching him in the correct manner. But before we come to that, I thought there was an interesting point. There's the walnut being mentioned here, the amalaka. There's the walnut this is sometimes actually given, even though Prabhupada here renders it as walnut. This is an interesting example of the translating mission. This translation itself is a very complex endeavor. There's many different barriers between us within an English-speaking context and, of course, the original Sanskrit text of Srimad Bhagavatam. The amalaka here is traditionally taken to refer to the amalaki, the Indian gooseberry. I looked up the technical name. It's the Philanthus emblica, and it's a plant, and it's rather similar in size. It's fruit, which also has the same name, which is about the similar size to the walnut. It's only around this big. It's a little sour fruit that can be eaten in the palm of the hand. But of course, such a thing would be foreign to the readers of this Bhagavatam, and so the bridge, the actual purport of the analogy, is being conveyed by Srila Prabhupada by rendering it like a walnut. And this is reflecting again one of the great challenges in translation. People often think a translation can be literal, and this is the literal way to translate it, and every other translation is maybe not literal. It takes some advantages with the text. But actually it's commonly accepted now within the field of linguistics that to actually translate is impossible. To actually translate literally is impossible. All translations are an act of interpretation. There is no way to convey what is said in one language in another language without to some degree interpreting what has been said in the original language. So we see here, Prabhupada is showing an interesting variation of this. In order that, again, there's so many bridges that must be crossed. Culturally, contextually, grammatically. There's differences between English's grammar and Sanskrit's grammar. There's differences between our current culture and the culture that Bhagavatam was written in. There's a difference between the context. There's a difference in sayings and aphorisms and so many things. These are all bridges that must be crossed by the translator. And so Srila Prabhupada here, he is crossing a contextual and cultural bridge and giving still the essence of the purport of this text. Furthermore, however, this principle is rather important because some people I know sometimes, especially I'm having with some of the youth groups, that one of the youth groups I'm running, often the boys in it are asking, why do we need to read Prabhupada's Gita translations? I can see maybe you've got a point with the purport, he's explaining the proper idea, but can't I just read the translations on their own? Or can't I just read some other Gita Press or something translation? Of course, there's actually no need for them to read any other translation. It's just the desire to always have something new and fresh going through the mind. But even then, even besides the necessity to quell again the pushings of the mind, there is the importance that even if one looks only at the translations, there will still constantly be an active interpretation done by whoever. Whoever is translating it will be, even if they claim the highest degree of literalness, they will always be to some degree interpreting it and reflecting that in their translation. And so therefore, it wouldn't make sense because the other people who are being commissioned for these translations, which are nevertheless still interpretations, they might not be qualified. They do not have an inherent understanding of what these texts mean. Their qualification comes only from understanding the grammatical relations between words. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur actually said, one who understands the Vedic literature only within lexicographical relationships, only within grammatical linguistic relationships, is actually represented in Krishna Lila by Kamsa. So it is not such a fulfilling thing to be only understanding the grammar. And yet people like this, they will be given the job of interpreting. They may say, I'm only translating. I'm not giving any purport. But even the act of translation itself is in some sense giving a purport because it does have some interpretive value. There is always some sort of commentary that bleeds in within translating. Which is why at Prabhupada we often find some of his translations, there are quite a few, not embellishments, but quite a few drawn out points where Prabhupada will take one word and say many things with it. Sometimes he'll list like the 9 forms of devotion or something, where only bhakti itself is mentioned in the text. But this is a very common thing and very much allowed within the rules of even mundane rules of translation. Because again, it's now given up. It's a myth that one can have a literal translation of anything. All translations must be an interpretation of some sort. That's an interesting point, and again, it reflects the importance and the value of having Srila Prabhupada's books. I still remember a while ago I was telling Sriman Singha Prabhu, I was telling him how in my university I was reading this book because we had to do introductory literature, and we were reading this book on the Bhagavad Gita, and it was listing all the different Bhagavad Gita translations, all of the best ones. So they had the best translation for the scholar is this and this. And then there was listed the best translation for the devotee is the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And I thought, oh, that's cool, they're giving at least some credit to Srila Prabhupada. But Sriman Singha Prabhu, he told me, actually, he said, this is nonsense. Srila Prabhupada's qualification doesn't come because he's a scholar. He shouldn't be listed among the scholars. Srila Prabhupada's qualification comes because he is a friend of Krishna. And being a friend of Krishna, he has understood the mood of these texts. And because of that, he is qualified to give us the purport of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, not because of any scholarship. And so to hear the words of Krishna interpreted by somebody who actually knows Krishna, to hear the literary incarnation interpreted by somebody who knows Krishna is infinitely more valuable and can't even be put in the same category as the interpretations and translations of somebody who is completely alien and immersed in his forgetfulness of Krishna. So that's a point about the translation. But then going into the actual text itself, we find that this is Narada again. He is wanting some knowledge from Brahma. He is approaching him because he wants to receive this knowledge. And he is doing it in the correct way. We know in Bhagavad Gita it is said that the way to obtain knowledge, there are the three steps, pranipata, pariprashna, and seva. Here we are hearing pranipatena, we say through the means of pranipata. This is often rendered as respectfully approaching. But of course that word pran is the same word we get pranam from, to pay respects, to have some glorification. When approaching, how must one approach respectfully? It is with their pranams. It is with their respectful prayers given. It is with respect offered to the prospective teacher. And so Narad here, he is embodying with all of his wisdom. We know Narad Muni is a very exalted devotee, and so with all of his wisdom he is approaching in the correct means. It is not that knowledge is gained through argumentation with a higher source, but rather by surrender and glorification to a higher source. And this knowledge that he wants, he is identifying it correctly in Brahma. Because of course some people, they will take knowledge from any source indiscriminately. But he is presenting a certain logic. It is the logic of inferring the cause from the effect. There's different logical rules that are determined within the Vedic system, and one is that by the nature of something's effect, we can determine its cause. If one is growing in devotion, we can know this is only this is spiritual effect, therefore it is having a spiritual cause. Srila Prabhupada had the effect of establishing the Krishna conscious movement all around the world, therefore we can infer that the cause, Srila Prabhupada, of the ISKCON movement is of a very high spiritual stature. In a similar way, Narada, he is saying, Narada Muni, he's saying because everything has been created by you, as is being explained in the purport, because everything is being created by you, because you have the knowledge to not only create everything, but in a sense oversee everything in the secondary creation, because you are having this knowledge, therefore, the result of being able to assemble and create a universe, the cause must be that you have immense knowledge. If you are creating this whole world, and I wish to have the knowledge and understanding of it, then you must have an immense knowledge of it. And therefore the result is inferred from the cause. And so, again, Narad Muni is again displaying the proper means of approaching sources of knowledge. It is not that one can approach anyone and hope to get a conclusive answer. Again, coming back to that first point regarding the translation, it is not that anyone can speak on these things. Narada Muni has determined that because of these features, you must be qualified to explain to me the nature of reality. And in the same way, because of the features of Srila Prabhupada's devotional service and intense quality of character, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu often says the time he became disillusioned with, one of the times he became disillusioned with mundane academics for determining the purpose of life was when he saw one of his professors smoking cigarettes. And he saw that this person, he's meant to be the greatest in his field, understanding, I think it was physics. He's meant to have understood such deep things, and yet he can't even overcome such a small and meager vice. Because all this knowledge, it is speculative, it is empty, and it is unrealized. We know again the Vedic pedagogy. The Vedic means of learning is Shravana, Manana, and Nididhasana. It is not just one thing to just hear Shravana knowledge. And then further after it must come Manana. But it is not just enough for Manana to meditate and to try and process this knowledge. Lastly, there must come Nididhyasana, realization of knowledge. And, of course, the purport of all sciences should be, if practically and realistically and properly implemented, should be a renunciation and a surrender. Prabhupada would often say we can infer so much from all these logical arguments, especially in Life Comes from Life and other texts. It is inferred that there must be a supreme being. And it doesn't take even the Vedic literatures, it just takes a tiny bit of contemplation and realization to realize that smoking is pointless. It's a waste of money and a waste of health and a waste of time. And yet nevertheless he was lacking so much, even this basic realization. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu said at that point he felt disillusioned. What can this path give me? Jesus Christ famously said, you will know a tree by its fruit. You will know if a tree is good by its fruit. So what are the fruits that are being given by somebody who has mastered this path of scientific academics? So not everyone is qualified to give information. But again, Srila Prabhupada is and Brahma is. Actually, it's rather interesting. Our sampradaya is stemming from Brahma. He is our sampradaya acharya, and we are sharing this this genealogy, this lineage, with the Tattvavadis, the followers of Madhvacharya. These Tattvavadis, they are also following in the line of Madhvacharya, coming from Brahma. And there's a few distinctions they have between us philosophically, of course, with the great contributions of Madhavendra Puri and Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially we have a different conception of the parampara coming through and what the parampara is offering. However, an interesting point where they differ with us is they will say that the Brahma Vimohan Leela didn't happen. They reject it happening. They will say, what are you guys doing? You're coming in the line of Brahma, you're coming from the parampara, descending from Brahma, and you are saying that Brahma could be illusioned? What is the point of your parampara if Brahma is not having the ability to withstand illusion? Then all our knowledge is pointless. If Brahma can make a mistake like this, parampara is the descent of perfect knowledge. Of course, that's showing their understanding. These pastimes are glorious. They are, in some sense, showing even the Brahma is engaging in the pastimes of Krishna. And by doing so, that is a greater thing than apparently having a perfection in every single decision that's ever made. So not fully grasping the purport of having pastimes of Krishna, they will say this, and they'll say, so they will come up with all these complex arguments for why the Brahma Vimohan Leela was added into Bhagavatam later on. But even if one cursory looks over them, you can tell they're just quite clearly trying to prove the point. They can't reconcile these things. Again, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a great harmonist of all truths. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur referred to his magazine as the harmonist. All conceptions, all truths, all seemingly irreconcilable positions are all harmonized in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So seemingly such contradictions, again, they are harmonized by the harmonist. So they will say like this, but still Brahma is qualified to give truth, because of course he is is an interesting figure. Brahma, it is often said, Prabhupada says, that in our first birth we took birth as Brahma in this material world. And there's a few ways of understanding this. Obviously there is that we ourselves were born taking the position of Brahma, which is the meaning in Prabhupada meant. But there's also another sense in which all of us constantly have been Brahma, not just being the actual jiva occupying that position. But it's said in the third canto of Bhagavatam, I have the shloka written here, but it got rained on the way. But Tasya nabher abhut padmam sahasrar kuru dhidhiti sarva jivanikayauko yatra swayam abhut swarat. And in this it said, from the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodhakashayi Vishnu, sprouted a lotus flower effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, and the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahma. In Prabhupada's purport to this text, he says that actually the Hiranyagarbha that we hear of is that lotus flower in which all the jivas are present. So all the jivas are present at once with Brahma as he begins his creative act. Even though he comes out from it, they're still present with that glow. It is glowing because, of course, achintya bheda bhed. We are simultaneous. We are a tiny spark of Krishna himself. We are a tiny little spark, and therefore, in the same way that Krishna has his Brahma Jyoti effulgence pouring out, the jivas have some tiny effulgence. It is said in the purport, and that is why this lotus flower, it was glowing. And so there we find that in this sense also all the jivas are present with Brahma. And this is elaborated further on in the 11th canto. And there's a really wonderful purport given by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada for this text. Tato virajam utsrijya vairajaha purusho nripa avyaktam vishate shukshmam nirindhana ivanalaha. And this text says, then Vairaja Brahma, the soul of the universal form, gives up his universal body, O king, and enters into the subtle, unmanifest nature, like a fire that has run out of fuel. And in the purport that's given by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they say, Vairaja means the totality of individual conditioned souls who originally take birth from Brahma and are amalgamated back into him at the time of annihilation. So this specific form of Brahma is a merging together. In the sense we know there's this term for samashti, there's samasti and vyasti. There's the samasti guru is that collective body of the guru, or rather singular representative of all of the vyasti, individual gurus. And in this sense, Brahma at one point he acts as sort of a samasti jiva, in a sense. All of the jivas are coming into him, and so they are all present in him. Even though there is one jiva occupying his body, all the jivas are in some sense coming into him, especially at the end of, at the great dissolution, when he merges back into the Mahatattva, before it becomes a Pradhana again. When this merging is happening, they all go into him, and in that sense the jivas again all sort of occupy, in a sense, with Brahma. And this is echoed actually in the 17th text of Ishopanishad, where there are the constant prayers being made, remember me Lord, remember me Lord, remember me Lord, when the fire, when I'm burnt away, let me merge into this unmanifest existence. In one of the purports that's given to that is that actually the prayer is being made that let me merge in, because it said let me merge in with the air, and it said that this air can be considered, this basic air can be considered to be representing mukhya prana. This is not the only way to understand it, but one way to understand it, Bhanu Swami was saying this, he gave a nice seminar as he translated all of these previous purports and previous texts. One of the ways to understand this prana is it's representing mukha prana, who is the demigod, who is the samasti jiva. He is when all the jivas are united just before they are merged in again after dissolution. They're all present in this sort of collective jiva before they are put away again. So it is a prayer for this. So this concept again of all the jivas coming together, not merging in some impersonalistic soup, but collectively as a body, as was mentioned in this purport, the totality of individual conditioned souls amalgamating back into him at the time of annihilation. So this sentiment is found a few times. And so in this sense, all the jivas are present with Brahma continuously in every single manifestation and dissolution. Not just in that one birth they take where they specifically are that jiva that pops out of the lotus flower to take the role of Brahma. So I thought it was an interesting little pattern. And furthermore, we hear about Brahma because there's different accounts given. Sometimes here we are hearing that he is going back into the unmanifest nature. That seems to imply that he's going to be born again. But then elsewhere we hear that Brahma, he will go back home back to Godhead after his lifetime. And other times we might hear that, that he's going to get some impersonal liberation. And again in this wonderful purport given by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, it's described that actually these are all true. They're describing the three different ways of having enough sukriti, of having enough pious reactions to take birth as Brahma. There are three paths to receive that point. One can go by the karma kanda. They may go through material piety. And if they do it through that, then they will take birth as Brahma, and then after Brahma dies, they will again take material birth. They won't go anywhere. They will again drop down into samsara. The jnani who reaches this through meditation, through the jnana kanda, he will actually gain some impersonal liberation. And of course, as we know, Srila Prabhupada often says impersonal liberation is just an extended break from, and then eventually pops back right into material nature. So that practically is just a nice little break, but it functionally means the same thing as the person following the karma kanda. But the devotee, through his devotional service, who gains the piety, the auspicious reactions in order to take birth as Brahma, he, after after the dissolution, after that body is destroyed of Brahma, that great Mahapralaya, then he goes away and he goes and enters into the spiritual domain. However, there's an exception given. Some devotees, it is said, there is the example given from the third canto, that some devotees, maybe they will reach this point and they're about to get there, they're about to get to the spiritual world, but then taking this great role of Brahma, they will think, wow, they might even hear glorifications like this. They will hear that they're the creator of the world, and suddenly they will get some idea. Oh, maybe I am the controller. They'll get some tiny hint of it. Maybe I, to some degree, am the controller. I am having so much importance in this material world. And with that tiny conception again, because this is of course the root cause, the root idea which causes people to be in the material world, they will get some tiny darshan maybe of the spiritual world after leaving, but then they'll have to enter samsara again. So it is a risky thing, but yes, so this position of Brahma, it is very great, and it is guaranteed quite a few things. Brahma Tattva is not as complex as Shiva Tattva, so it's a bit easier to get through some points. So Brahma is, as we know, it is a position, and it can be occupied by different types of souls. Even the Supreme Personality of Godhead may take the position of Brahma if there are no jivas who are taking up that position. And so some Brahmas might get bewildered and they might have this idea that I'm the controller, I am the ruler, because they'll have some idea of some greatness because I've created the world. And this reflects an interesting philosophical idea, because especially today a lot of the arguments built on trying to prove the existence of God are built on this idea that, look, this universe must have been created. There must have been a creator. And these are good arguments. They in one sense are refuting this naturalistic narrative that it couldn't have been an intelligence who's creating the world. Because people will say, of course, this cell and this cell, and then suddenly through these permutations, suddenly a human being pops up. No matter how statistically unlikely that is, they're very much willing to put faith in that one tiny bit of chance. So, but many people will think like this. So it is not to say, of course, that the arguments that are presented to show that there must have been an intelligent designer are faulty. But to some degree, these arguments are proving the existence of Brahma, not necessarily that of Krishna. Because Brahma is the intelligence who is creating. And so hearing these sort of things, one can sometimes come to the point that this universe must have been assembled. But there is a greater creation. And sometimes people Brahma might fall under that same thought process, focusing entirely on the assembly of the world. He will see, oh, I have created all these things, therefore I am the greatest being. I am the creator of all things. And so, in some respect, also, these arguments are good because they shatter these bogus worldviews. But still, sometimes it might fall short, because as great as it is to assemble this world, of course, we're hearing the glorifications here, and that diminishing the great value, the great intelligence it is required to assemble the world, but how much greater is it to provide the very existence upon which these material elements stand on? How much greater is it to be the source of these Shaktis? It is one thing to assemble something that already exists, but it is another thing to be the very ground of being upon which everything may be assembled. This is the greater thing, and if the Brahmas keep in mind this, then they will, it's easier said than done, but they will not fall under this sentiment, because sure, you can assemble things, you can play the role of an assembler, but Krishna is the source again of all the Sandhini Shakti, which undergirds the existence potency. Satchid Ananda, Sat, his very body is composed of existence, and therefore existence itself finds its source in him. Brahma himself cannot provide new existence. Brahma himself cannot provide that underlying life of reality. And therefore, as great as this glorification is, that he must know so much, if he is the creator of the whole world, how much greater must be the position of that person who is providing existence for that creation to be assembled on. Here it's almost an indirect glorification of that Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does so practically only by a fraction of his potency. Mahavishnu is not the most full incarnation of the Lord, and yet even with that, he's providing that bedrock for all of material existence. And then what to speak of that same Krishna, who's again providing the bedrock for all of spiritual existence as well. So, that's a point there. And we know that this humility, we know is that famous pastime from Chaitanya Charitamrita that is said of when Brahma went to visit Krishna in Dwarka, and he knocked and he asked, he said, oh, it's Brahma, I'm here to visit Krishna. And Krishna asked, which Brahma are you? And Brahma, a little blow to his ego, he said, he came out to Krishna and he said, I'm the four-headed Brahma. And Krishna said, why have you come here, what have you come to ask? And Brahma, he was so much thinking, he was, sometimes, our priorities get switched up. And we could see whatever errand Brahma had to come with, his hurt ego was more of a priority at that point than the actual issue he had come to Krishna with. And so he couldn't even get it out. He had no patience. He had to resolve this issue. He had to resolve this issue. Whatever issue he was coming with, whatever cosmic inquiry he had to know why Krishna would have to specify which Brahma he is referring to. And so Brahma says, okay, I'll get to that later. Later I'll ask you, but first I want to know why you asked which Brahma it is. And then of course we know Krishna, he meditates and he brings all the Brahmas and Shivas from all of the various universes. And just to emphasize his omnipotency and his great power, he makes sure that none of the other Brahmas see each other. Only the four-headed Brahma could see this great variety of Brahmas. And as they all came, all of them, there was Brahmas with 10 heads, hundreds of heads, millions of heads. His Grace Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu, he says he doesn't have Shastric Praman for it, but sometimes he thinks maybe one of the reasons, as well as the fact that the amount of heads seems to correlate with the size of the universe, or another reason why there might be a multiplicity of heads is because our universe is three-dimensional. and therefore you need 4 heads to see in all the 3 dimensions. Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu says maybe it is possible that these are universes with more dimensions, and therefore enabled to be able to see in all of the directions, they're given extra heads that they might be able to see everywhere. But that was Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu's theory. He said himself he doesn't have the Shastra Praman for it. It's just a sort of interesting thought he had. But so they all come together, and all these many, many different heads and all of their crowns are clanging together, forming a sort of a kirtan. In a sense, it is like they're all worshipping. And in that sense, Brahma sees, and he is humbled seeing this thing. And he's seeing all of this great display of opulence. How wonderful is it, again, that Krishna, who is providing reality, he's providing the reality for all these various Brahmas. And they're all very opulent, so humbled. With only 4 heads, he says, actually, you're from the smallest universe. All these people, some of them are from universes so big it's almost unlimited. Your universe is tiny. And all these Brahmas, they're from much greater universes. But anyway, so with this humbling in 3 places, as beautiful and as opulent and as humbling as seeing all of these various Brahmas were, there is no thing that is maybe not opulent, but that is no more beautiful, that is no more explicitly beautiful than that form of Krishna. And before that, there should be a genuine humbling. Krishna, he dissipated the ignorance, the avidya of Brahma by showing him all these various forms in order to cut away it as a ahankar, and which of course cuts away all suffering. Narad's quest, asking for knowledge, is a very, very important one. We know in Nectar of Devotion it's listed, there's avidya, bija, and papa. These are the different sufferings in the material world. And it's said, in some sense, these all cause suffering, because papa causes suffering. In the section of Klesha Agni, the destruction of suffering is mentioned. Papa causes suffering because you get bad karmic reactions. Bija causes suffering because bija is the seed desire to do papa. Therefore that causes suffering as well, because you do a sin and then you get the bad reactions for it. You are desiring to do that thing. And then avidya, avidya gives you that seed desire. But the root of all of them is avidya. The lack of knowledge is the root cause of all suffering in existence. The initial desire to do something bad, the initial seed that takes place, that comes only from a lack of knowledge, a lack of awareness about the nature of things. And then that desire itself gives birth to the actual sinful action, and the sinful action therefore intensifies that samskara in the chitta, and then that cycle begins of sinful action, bad reaction, further desire, further sinful action, further sinful reaction, so on and so forth. But that cycle is kick-started again by avidya. And to quell the pains and sufferings of this material existence, it is necessary to have vidya, to have knowledge. But again, Krishna was giving some sense of knowledge by showing all these various Brahmas. But the highest knowledge we can have is to realize again that as beautiful and as opulent as all these Brahmas may be, as high as their position may be, the ultimate vidya, the ultimate knowledge, is to realize that the most beautiful form and the most powerful form and the source of everything is, again, that form not with millions of heads but with one head, that Shyam, black Krishna, who is only of a medium size, because that is the sweetest, not the small size or the large size, but the medium form. That is the fulfillment of all vidya, of all knowledge. To realize that form is the highest knowledge, as opulent and as great as all these things are. So, with that in mind, I think it shows this is a wonderful glorification of Brahma. Brahma is very glorious, but it's also, in a sense, very sweetly, indirectly, I find this text glorifying that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Uttama Shloka, and for whom all great glorifications should be intended for. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.